Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I color using just 3 alcohol markers. And if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. Okay, so this might be a bit of a long video. I'm going to try to complete the picture all in one go. I do a 3 marker challenge every single month, and it's sort of a riff on Kori of Colorfully Optimistic's alphabet challenge per month. She does hers by way of she chooses brands that begin with the letter of the month. I don't have that many different brands, and so I chose to spin it and use colors that begin with the alphabet of the month. But I also think that because of the way that I'm choosing colors, it's not by a color family or anything, it truly is by the name of the actual pen, pencil, whatever. It could actually go for Lily of Art Journey UK's random color generator hashtag. So I'm actually going to use both of those hashtags definitely in the thumbnail as well as in the description box. Now my go-to for my 3 marker challenge definitely is one of Zan Von Zed's images. Generally it is one of the more grayscale images, and when we go into the picture that I'm going to actually be doing, I'll talk about why. When I started pulling together my Zan Von Zeds, I had already colored in the other one, and so I wanted to choose a picture from one of the ones I hadn't colored for the month. I actually do have a colored page in this one. This one was for Lily's random color generator. I always have to pause because I always want to call it something else, but no, it's the random color generator. But fortunately, the picture I decided to work on for this video isn't in here. So I did want to show you how I kind of decide on how to choose an image before we actually do the image together. If you might have guessed, this intro is going to be long, but I will timestamp when the actual coloring begins. So I flagged this picture right here because this would be a good one to do for the 3 marker challenge, because even though there's quite a bit of elements on the page, I can see myself washing her dress and her hair in the lightest color that I would have for that particular month. Because again, I don't get to choose light, medium, or dark. I don't even get to choose the colorway. I get to choose pens from that begin with the same letter, and then using the other darker or medium tones, again, whatever it is I have for that month, to kind of add some of the details. And the grayscale is definitely helpful because then I don't have to worry about any depth or shadow because it's already going to be there as an undering layer. In this one right here, Ladies of Leisure 2, sorry, that was the original Ladies of Leisure. Ladies of Leisure 2 is line art. I don't know if it's available in grayscale. If it is, I definitely will pick it up because I do prefer it. But of a line art perspective, again, I would choose something like this because the background is fairly simple. The composition of the picture is centered, but there's not a lot of elements on the page. So I could make the background, her skin, her hair, the lightest color. I could choose to do the darker color or medium tone if I have that available here, and then I can play with mixing colors to add depth to the rest of it so she's just not flat. Now there actually is a tiny bit of grayscale on here, or at least there's a little bit of shading on here, so I could go in with the same tone and add another layer and it will deepen it up just a little bit. But this is a kind of picture that I could choose for that challenge just because I'm pretty sure I can get some pretty interesting results, but not have to spend a ton of time or effort to do so. This is the book that we're going to be working out now. Again, I think there's a glare, so I'm sorry for that, but that will go away in just a bit. I'll show you the page that we're going to be working on, which is this one right here. Again, because I already know the colors because they're just off to the side of me, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to base it all in the lightest color. The elements in the back is going to be one of the other two colors, and then I'm going to start mixing and matching colors just so that I can get some varying tones on here to make her a little bit more interesting than just doing a wash of one color and then another color on the page. Now, there are some pages in here, like this one, if I weren't filming, would be fine. This one, there's a lot of little bits in here, so I don't know that I'd want something because it does pull a lot more busy. And because she is such a strong presence, I would want that to kind of recede in the background, maybe have these flowers pop. And so this is probably something I'd want to do with just, I choose whatever colors I want to kind of picture versus the colors are chosen for me. But then elements like this, where there's other things on the page, like the cat, I wouldn't choose those because, again, I'd want to have the page have more personality, and I don't know that I could do it with 3. This one, honestly, it's kind of boring to me, so I'd probably want to bring tons of color to a page like this because it's kind of boring. And this one the same. There's too many elements on the page that I don't think I could get away with just doing 3 colors, and I'd want to play up some of the aspects a little bit more. So we're going to work on this one. Let me put these away. And so I've got some pages underneath it because I don't want to ruin the page behind this. And the 3 colors that I have are these right here. Now these are out of my original Ohuhu set, so I don't have the names on them, but I do have them written down. In fact, let's go down here. And this is something I started doing a couple months ago because I like seeing the colors on the page. Because then some of the images that I've done with this method, you wouldn't know that one of those pens were on there because of the way that I used it. Okay. So this is gray-green. And this is from my Ohuhu pastel set, I believe. And then the red is from the regular set, and that's number 15, geranium, and the green is grass green. I did that so that I wouldn't have to go back to the whole bag of markers. So red is 15, and that's geranium, and that's 47, and that's grass green. So based on my color palette, she and her dress and even her hair, I'm going to wash out in that gray and green because that is the lightest tone that I have on here. The red is definitely the darker of the two, but they are definitely more dark. I don't really have a true middle color, and they're certainly not all in the same family. This definitely pulls a lot cooler. This pulls a lot warmer, but we're going to get what we're going to get, and we're going to make it work. Now it is currently Saturday the 26th. I thought I was done with my coloring for the month. Most months I color all the way up until midnight on the final day of the month, but I actually want to get a jump on some of my pictures for March, and so I'm going to do this one. I don't know that I have anything else outstanding, and then I might actually binge some shows. And I'm sorry if the lighting is a bit weird. There's going to be a ton of shadows, but my lighting is not set up for coloring on camera. So let's do some of the detailed work first. Because this one, my pastel pens, does come with a chisel and a brush, so I can get in there and it's fairly quick. And once we get into her face, you'll actually see the beauty of why I love grayscale so much. Now, because of the art style of Zan Von Zed, to me, it's always going to be okay if you can see lines. I know some people really obsess about not having any lines, not having any streaks, having this completely even. I will never be one of them. Just because I always have been able to convince myself that even if there's a line through her face, I mean, maybe it was a bad sunless tan, fake tan day. I'm not going to judge. And so I'm just going to do a wash of color. I will be mindful of her eyes because unlike any of my other pictures, when I'm doing Kori's alphabet challenge, I don't add embellishments. The only things that are going to go on this page are the 3 markers you see. So if I want something lighter than my lightest color, then I have to make sure I don't color it. And I could do this off screen with you guys, but I do want you guys to see what it is that I'm doing. I know sometimes alcohol marker work can see a bit challenging, and it could be because you're just not used to the medium, but also could be because a lot of the alcohol marker sets that I see that people have, you might have 50, 60, 80, 200 markers. I'm definitely of the opinion that I like having more colors because that gives me more options, but that also can be quite overwhelming when you have a ton of options. Especially if you swatch things and you test things, I think that actually is way more stressful than if you just kind of go loosey-goosey like I do. For some of you, just going loosey-goosey like I do might be way more stressful. Because I basically, if I were doing this page with just colors that I've curated, I will start with her skin. Because I don't swatch things, so her skin will really choose the direction. Because a lot of times, what I think is going to be the color doesn't actually happen, and so I need to adjust accordingly. Now I could swatch, but that kind of takes the fun out of it for me. I know that, again, for some of you, like, yeah, exactly. You just kind of let fate take over. And for some of you, like, that would give me so much stress. Why would I even do that to myself? So, I mean, I totally get it. I'm going to switch to the chisel. And as you can see, I don't have the most even of applications, but that actually is working to my favor right here because it does add a little bit of a glow to that. And if the light is coming from this way, that would happen. I'm also horrible at determining light source, so I can talk myself into just leaving that as is. Now you're probably thinking that she looks horrible. And at the end of this, she might probably continue to look horrible. But I'm okay with that. To me, what makes this challenge fun, and why I've kept to Kori's alphabet challenge, is because I don't know what I'm going to get. It does test my skill, but also the color choice is out of my hands. So the only thing that I have really any input on is where I put it. I didn't choose the palette, but I will certainly try to make the best of it. Now, I don't always wash the entire picture in the same color, but again, the other 2 colors, they're just so dark that I want to be able to use the fact that alcohol markers are transparent, and so I can start adding effects. I don't know what we're going to do by way of the background, so we're actually going to do that last. Okay, so first of all, we're going to come in with our red. This is a find and a broad tip or chisel. And what I like to do at the top of the eyes, with whatever my darkest color is, because I don't necessarily want her to have red eyes, but I do want that to be the most shadowed, is I'm going to go in with the red. And then with the green, I'm going to be very mindful of that white line that's going through, and I'm going to color that in. I do want to let that dry just a little bit before I go back in and probably go in with this color, just because I can still see a little bit of the red, but again, it is the darker of the two colors, especially once you start layering it. So let's put this down and see what it does. Oh, I'm going to use this side. Now that color actually seems to make the stars glow. And I'm not mad at it. You'll be able to see it once it dries. This will dry a little lighter than what you see right now. And again, I'm going to try to color this so that you can see it without shadows. And I never worry if I go outside the lines. If it bothers me enough in a regular page that I might be doing, then I'll go in with some either Uniball white or with some Jelly Roll white and just kind of white it out. For this one, I'm not going to worry about that. Oh, I think that's her arm. Yeah, I think that's her arm. So I'm going to need to make sure I keep that lighter. Yeah, so it makes those stars glow a little bit because there is some hatching or some extra line work in the actual fabric. So that definitely is going to help us in this. Because it just will end up hopefully looking like we put a lot more thought and effort into this than we actually did. So this, I see a star. That's her skin. That would be more of this fabric because I can see the piping there. That would be piping. And this here. Now the way that this one actually differs from that random one that I did for Lily's hashtag is this one I am very deliberate on where I'm putting the colors. With that one, I didn't know what colors I was going to have until I actually pulled it out, and it was also going to go for a specific place. So I can use lights and mediums and darks to the best advantage. On that one, I was just going to get what I was going to get. And actually, I think it worked out really well. Okay, so let's do some blending. So I'm going to take my lightest color and I'm going to put it on here. It's going to pick up some of that color. And then you're seeing that it changes the complexity of the color. And that's why I can add some different tones to my pages, because I can kind of swirl those around. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be. Both the art style of this page plus what I want this page to be is really just an exercise on what can I do with my stuff. So I'm going to want to concentrate on the areas that are darker. So anything that has darker shading that you can see through the lightest color, we are going to put some of this on. It does make this a little bit tedious. But again, if you are doing something similar like this, and you can choose to do it like I am, where you're just choosing the letter of the alphabet. You can choose to do M Bean's one color challenge. I believe that's something she's doing all year. And then just pick a light, medium, and dark of the same color family. Then you can still add varying tones to your picture by kind of using your lightest on one of your other colors. And we'll actually do this with the green as well. As you can see, eventually it's going to not be able to pick up because there's no color in the tip. So we might have to come back and keep working at this. But I mean, doesn't that look more interesting than just the flat color did? I think so. Yeah, I guess we have to point it down like that. And if I go silent, I'm not going to cut that out. It actually would be easier from an editing perspective, but I do want you to see how even this is kind of random on the page, because even though I'm doing the same technique, you can see that the application is never going to be exactly the same twice. I'm just kind of scumbling it on there. And that might actually be, there's a line right there that it might be hair or it might be a headband. So let's just treat it like some hair that's tucked in. Let's get this darker. And I don't think this is something that you can mess up. Oh no, let me rephrase that. Whatever the results are, I know I'm going to enjoy. Whether it makes sense, whether it looks beautiful, whether it's visually correct by way of lights and shadows, it's actually not anything I'm concerning myself with, but I love the challenge aspect of it. And I love being able to use my stuff in a different way. If you're interested, I can also do a video, not this month because I've already done the page, but next month where I show you how I use up to 5 different color pencils and do something very similar to this. I don't generally do straight pencil work on Amazon printed paper because they're generally one-sided color pages, and therefore I can go to town with my alcohol markers. And my alcohol markers are just a lot easier on my hands. So the pencil challenges that I have done predominantly actually have either been Erie, Opal, or Joanna Basford. Generally a double-sided coloring book that I probably would have only done pencil work in anyway. If you're interested in that, let me know and I can see about filming. I won't guarantee when that'll happen because it really just depends on my mood. Coloring and talking is not an easy thing to do. I love when people do it in their videos, but I also know that it is difficult. because I'm just kind of trying to explain what I'm doing, focus on what I'm doing, keep a conversation up with you guys. And I'm not answering any questions because that does make it easier, because then I can focus on something specific like in front of me. But no, we're gonna just kind of hang out for today. Okay, I'm just gonna add a little bit more down here. And then we'll work on her face. Where it does get closest to her, I do want to add the darkest color, not even so much from a light source kind of aspect, but more because then it'll lighten up her skin. That's why I've always, if I do wear nail polish, I choose to wear like a dark fire engine red versus like a light ballerina pink, because then it makes my skin look lighter. And yeah, that's something that I like the look of. Okay, so we're going to cap this for now. We might actually use this as a straight color, but we might not. Let's go in here and do the same thing. And there's still some red on it, but I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to come and do some shadow in here. And so it'll tie in a little bit more to that color right there. And we'll do the outer piping in the same way. And in that way we can get some variance against her skin. So it'll look like we have two different colors of piping. I don't even know if that's what it's called, but that's what I'm calling it. And it's not drastically different. It's not as noticeable as the red because we're working on a green on green. And yet, even when it dries down, you can see that it does dry a little darker. And that's all the difference that we're going to need just to bring some interest. And I don't know, I mean, the colors you would think would pull inherently Christmassy, but I don't know that we're getting that so far. Okay, and then we need to do this side. See, that one looked like it flowed into that one, but this one doesn't, so we'll have to make like it does. Okay, so let's cap this for now. And we're going to go in with the original skin color, and we're just going to go where there's already some shading and highlight that. Where the dress touches, just going to do a line. And the line is probably going to be very noticeable, and I'm not going to care about that. Whether I'm doing a Zan Von Zed or not, I'm never going to care about that. So we're just going to bring in the starkness even more. I know that grayscale can be a little bit intimidating because depending on the medium you're using, even alcohol markers, you can still see some of the gray beneath it. But I think in coloring book pages, to me, that actually kind of works. Right? My undertone for my skin actually pulls a bit red. But instead of neutralizing the red when I'm wearing makeup with something green, it actually, my skin looks better if I neutralize, or if I wear neutral makeup that has a little bit of a yellow undertone versus a little bit of a green undertone. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've tried doing color correcting with green and it makes me look too pale, because what I want to do is just make my skin look even. I don't want it to look like I borrowed my head from someone else because the skin is just different, right? Because you need to match your neck to your face, and my arms are usually shown, so I need to match my neck, my face, and my arms because, again, I don't want it to look like I bought my head from somewhere. And so it just, to me, I like that it's so stark there that you can definitely see the shape of the face. Because again, that might seem too dark to you guys, but I think it's fine for now. Okay, so let's do just some straight red on the page. We can do that with her lips. And even in the lips, there is some grayscale. So although we're coloring the full thing in, the places that were darker are going to pull more shadowy. The places that were lighter, like right under there, are going to show more of a highlight. I think that looks good. Let's see what happens when we come in. Unlike Hannah Lynn, which has, I mean, it's definitely not real looking hair, but it has more different lines where you can color in more realistically. It's just kind of one wig type of thing. So if we wanted to come in and just add some interest like this, we could certainly do that. And for her, I think we are almost there. With the color combos that I have, I don't know that there's much more that we could do. To her skin, her hair, her outfit. I'm just gonna go and highlight the lowlights. If that makes sense. Again, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. And adding in these little worm kind of lines, again, just brings some interest to it. Makes me believe I'm artistic. And then we can actually come in with this one again and do a wash over the whole thing. It's not going to blend it. I think if this were better paper, doing it would be able to blend this easier. Like if you were using watercolor paper or marker paper, I don't know. I don't print or scan my pictures on anything, so I don't know exactly how that works. But if the red was still wet and I did this and the paper were better and wasn't just soaking up the marker, you might be able to move it and kind of soften the lines. I'm not going for a softened line. What I'm going for is trying to just make as much of a contrast between her skin and her hair as I can. Okay, I think we'll come in and we'll darken some of these. And I've done these challenges where I've had two lighter colors, like this, where there's more darker colors. I've done the challenge where the colors are like polar opposites, are in the same color family. And I couldn't tell you that there was one that I liked better. It definitely is easier if you're working with lighter colors to kind of build on top of that. When you're working with darker colors, there's certain things you're just not going to be able to see. At least, I don't think so. And I'm wondering if I should put another layer on her skin, but I kind of like the look of that. We'll leave that for now. And then for the background, I don't really want a red or a green background. So let's try to be a little careful because some of the lines are fine. And let's see what this looks like when these two colors are just straight up layered. Actually, it'll spread more if I put a wet ink on top of a wet ink. So I'm gonna do all of this. And because this is just straight up coloring, there is no layering at this point, I'm actually gonna just do this off camera and I'll bring you guys back in just a second. Okay, so I've got all of the background done. Oh, I'm a liar. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like how the green frames out her head, but I don't like how it frames out her body. And I think this marker is about to die, but it should last long enough to hopefully complete the circle. I know when people color on camera, they try their best not to move the image, because it can be, it can cause problems if you get dizzy or whatnot. And honestly, I'm sorry, so sorry, but I'm either going to be able to talk through this and color the way I want, or I'm going to be able to color where it stays like this, and then I won't do any talking, but I don't have the capacity to do both. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So let's see what it looks like when we layer these colors. Because I do like the green right up there. That definitely just makes the red darker. And so we might need to be a little judicious. Is that even the right word? Yeah, it certainly makes it darker. Where the reds touch. I mean, the way that the picture is, there's going to be no escaping that, because either her hair is going to touch red or her dress is going to touch green. I don't know why that was so difficult to say. Because I do want there to be a distinction, right? Like in that area right there, there's not much of a distinction. So we're going to leave that green. We're going to let that go. We're going to let that go. We're going to let that go. And over here, we can do red. And over here. Because it actually is symmetrical, but the way she's standing isn't. So let's just start it there. And I'm not being very careful on purpose. Again, we're gonna say that it's just the artistic style of the page. Because again, whether I was filming this or not, I don't know that I would have gone any slower. Because then again, I'm just adding texture, or at least I'm telling myself that I'm adding texture by not staying in the lines. Okay, so let's see. In this little junction right here, if we add the green, yeah. So I want there to be enough of a contrast that you don't mistake this for hair. And that does definitely darken that up. So that's hair, that's hair, that's hair. This was not. It's actually not a bad color. I'm almost tempted to layer the red and the green in her hair, but I'm thinking her hair is looking okay. Okay. So, what happens if we do these two colors with that trick? Right? And you can see in there, hopefully, that it definitely is splotchy. But again, if I'm telling myself this story in my head, some of her piping is done in an ombre effect. I mean, kind of badly. But we're just kind of tricking the eye to believe that there's more colors on this page, more texture on this page than you would think you could get out of 3 markers. Now you might have the ability to do this fantastically. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone do a limited color palette, randomly chosen color palette this way. And if you can, and if you have, I'd love to see that. I don't watch color alongs or anything of that nature because I want to recreate someone else's palette. To me, it's kind of done already then. If you've done it, why do I need to do that? I know why people do it. It does give them inspiration. It does help them see elements on the page. But for me, that's not the fun part of coloring. But I do watch those because I like to support my friends in the coloring book community, but also, you know, just by watching and listening, you can glean quite a bit of technique, right? So I might not want to necessarily color in the same color palette as you, but if I do have those materials, it does help me figure out how to use my stuff better. I like how those two are working. And then what I'll probably do off camera is just look for a quote. You guys know I love adding text to a page. That's why something like that doesn't bother me. I like knowing what I've used. I'm going to write down the materials. I'm going to write down the hashtags, when I started, when I finish. I don't consider myself a colorist. I know colorists and artists may or may not put all of that information on their page, but for me, this becomes almost like a hybrid journal type of thing. And so seeing a text on a page gives me a reminder of what I did, why I chose it, but also gives me some context. And for me, that just makes the whole thing more enjoyable. Again, just adding some definition. And I think I might do a little bit more shading in her face. And then we'll call it a day. And one of the neighbors is doing yard work, so I'm just doing my level best to pretend it's not there. All right, that's looking pretty good. So caps on, caps on. Let's kind of add another layer. And then we're gonna use these two again. And bring some, well, because this green is definitely cooler. But let's see if we can just bring some interest. Although I guess her eyebrows should be more red in tone. It's definitely bringing a little bit more life to the skin, I think. Or maybe I'm just fooling myself. But now I do think the contrast is too dark. So we'll do this. And by letting it dry like this, you can fully see the lines, and that's what most people try to avoid. I'm not one of those. You might have guessed if you're still here, but yeah, I'm certainly not one of those people. Okay. Maybe if we work fast, we can kind of buff that out, make it a little bit more targeted. That seems to be working okay. I think for the Zan Von Zed pages, it's the eyes that really get me. I think they're just beautiful. Can add some in here because then it'll make her jaw look sharper. Yeah, because it makes her face and the shadows there recede and her face come to the foreground. Okay, and then let's just color her face one more time. Oh, it's because it doesn't belong there. You'll still be able to see the lighter tones, but the contrast won't be as stark. And the last thing we're going to do is make her eyebrows stand out a little bit more. All right, guys, so this is me finished. Now, is it, well, okay, I think it's a very interesting page, and considering the colors that we had to work with, I don't know that it inherently pulls Christmassy, but I don't know that it inherently doesn't. There definitely is some messiness to the page. Again, I'm going to say that it just adds texture. Doing that extra final coat of the lightest color did make the differences between the darks and the lights of her face and her neck seem a little less pronounced. Going in with the same color, you can build up the same saturation of that color, and then adding little things of green just adds a little bit more interest to her face. There are pages, let's say for instance this one, where I'm choosing a color palette that you can really just play up aspects of the page. This was one of those 3 marker challenges that I really had to really work to get contrast between the elements on the page by way of the background and the foreground, and so you are limited on what you can do. This one also has an issue, but if you've seen that video, you know what I'm talking about. But I think it's an interesting way to kind of approach this coloring book. And like, this was the very first one that I did, and this one only has 3 markers, and I think still she is one of the most stunning ones that I've done. But I really had to play around with my lights, my mids, and my dark tone. Luckily this had that, in order to get this contrast, so that not everyone is going to look like this. It doesn't need to, but considering the markers that I had to work with, I think she looks stunning. And then I'm going to find a quote that's really going to set the tone for this page, and I think it's just it's a fun project for me that I look forward to every single month, and I'm hoping you enjoyed watching and you kind of understand a little bit more about my process. All right, guys, well, that's it for me for now, and as always, aloha.